Thank you.
Anyone else here to speak in favor of this request? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to this request? We do have communication. Ben Munson supports the request, and Bob Gardner from Colonial Monuments supports it. That's for item C. Any discussion amongst the council?
Looks like a good addition to me.
I agree. I will close the public hearing on item C and entertain a motion.
I move to recommend approval of the request for conditional use permit for a bar.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to item D. Receive a report, hold a discussion, conduct a public hearing, and make a recommendation on a request to rezone approximately 0.15 acres of land platted as Lot 5, Block 4 of the Sunnyside Edition, also known as 816 West Coffin Street, from commercial zoning to single-family residential zoning district to accommodate an existing residential use.
The applicant is requesting this change in zoning to align the zoning with the current use of the property. There is a single-family home on this lot. While there are other commercial properties and uses in the area, the houses on both sides of this property are zoned SF5 and are used for residential purposes. And so this request aligns the current use of the property with the zoning.
Okay. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this request? Yes. Name and address for the record, please.
Nayeli Sanchez, 816 West Coffin Street here in Denison, Texas. We are currently the owners. This is Jorge Alberto Diaz del Rio. We are requesting to change the zoning, as mentioned, to single family. It is commercial. We actually have a buyer in pending contract that is needing to extend their loan, and in order for them to be approved, they do need it to be a single family home.
Okay, yes, ma'am. Any questions for the speaker? Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else here to speak in favor of this request? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition? If not, I will close the public hearing on item D and entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to recommend approval of the changing of the zoning of the subject property from the commercial zoning district to SF5 single-family residential zoning district.
There's a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item D passes. Moving on to item E. Receive a report, hold a discussion, and conduct a public hearing and make a recommendation on a request to rezone approximately 2.9 acres of land platted as Block 2 of Miller's First Edition, also known as 715 West Sear Street, from the Planned Development Overlay District to the revised Planned Development Overlay District with the base zoning of single-family attached for development of townhomes.
The applicant is requesting to rezone this property from a planned development district that currently only allows certain manufacturing uses to a revised planned development district to allow the development of townhomes. And the applicant is requesting several planned development stipulations that relate to visitor parking, landscaping, and facade design. Just a little bit of history on this property. This is a location of the former Central Ward School, which was demolished in 2018. And last year, the applicant submitted a request to build duplexes and rezone and build duplexes on the property. There were some concerns about that request from the city council, and they tabled the case back in January. The applicants have now revised their request to build townhomes in compliance with the single-family townhouse zoning district. They are proposing to do 30 townhouses on the property. They would all be rear entry with garages and driveways. Also, there are several planned development stipulations that are being proposed to make this property essentially work for townhouses, since it is a small infill tract. There is one stipulation concerning the minimum size of townhome development. Our zoning ordinance requires that all townhome developments be at least 5 acres in size, and this one is 2.9 acres. there's not a land stretcher out there to make it work. So we are asking that that be one of the stipulations. And also would add, and this was not in your staff report, the minimum size of a planned development district for single-family uses is 3 acres. And again, this is right below that threshold as well. So if you do choose to recommend approval, I would ask that you also add that stipulation in with the other plan development stipulations. When this case came before the Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council before, there were concerns about visitor parking. And the applicant had looked at adding a drive across the property on Sears Street with some head-in parking. As we worked with the applicant, we felt that was a very commercial-looking design, and we have come up with an alternative proposal, which is to add designated parking spaces on Sears Street, Barrett Avenue, and Armstrong Avenue, but not Morton Street. But there is sufficient right-of-way, and you can see the designated spaces on the plan, but these would be essentially created through some changes in construction in the right-of-way with some street trees, so it's clear that people are able to park there. There will be the number of spaces built that meets the townhouse visitor zoning requirement, which is 1 space for every 4 units. The applicants are also proposing 1 2-inch caliper shade tree for each lot. The lots aren't wide enough for more trees, but in addition, they are proposing to add trees along the side streets where there is some open space areas. In terms of open space, the townhouse zoning district typically requires 20% of the area to be reserved for common open space. Given that this is a small tract, staff is recommending that a smaller open space areas be provided, and those would be between the 2 buildings. They would need to be a minimum of 26 feet in width, and this totals approximately 12% of the property area. And finally, there are some facade and material and building designs proposed. The applicant did submit rendering showing what the proposed townhouses would look like on the exterior. We are recommending that exterior building materials be 100% masonry for the front facade of each dwelling unit, and then 75% masonry required on each townhome unit that sides to a street. Staff is recommending approval of this request, subject to the PD stipulations that are in your packet, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have. The applicants here as well.
Any questions?
I just have some questions about the utilities, since they're not making any improvements to those. My understanding those are in the alley.
I don't know. There is an existing alley there, but I'm assuming I shouldn't assume
There's
ever.
going to be a number of questions, aren't there?
They would need to make improvements to the alley surface, and if there are utility improvements required, and I'm not aware of any, this has been reviewed by our Public Works staff, but they would have to make those as well. And I'm sorry, I don't know where the water and sewer lines are located. They may be in the alley.
Will that be shared responsibility if they run into some difficulties, or will it be the developer's responsibility?
It would be the developer's responsibility. Sometimes you see issues with sewer capacity when you increase the density in infill areas like this, but that will be vetted as they go through the site plan and engineering plan process.
There's a huge change from a school, and it's been dormant for so long, so that's part of my concern.
Yes, and I think it is an infill project, and it's always good to get uses back on those.
Right.
But there will be a full review in terms of utilities and grading and drainage when they go through the site plan process.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this request? Is there anyone here? Oh, yes. Name and address for the record, please.
Kathy Frosch, 311 Bryant Street in Pottsboro. I work for
Can you
the
bring the
developer.
microphone closer
I'm
to
sorry?
you?
Oh.
Speak into the microphone.
311 Bryant Street, Pottsboro, Texas. I work for the developer that has made the application, Ronnie Malone. Of course, I'm in favor of the project.
Right. Any questions for the speaker?
What will be the size of each unit?
Each unit is approximately 1,200 square feet.
Well, I do have one question. The garages, it's probably in here, but are they one or two-car garages?
I think they are double car garages, 2-car. And then we usually, on the picture, I can't really tell from that rendering because we've gone back and forth and just tried to follow all the recommendations. There's usually 2 parking spaces from the garage and then the driveway, side by side.
So they're on what was there, where it says Crawford Street, that's really Sears Street,
It's
correct?
really Morton Street.
Morton Street?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, yes. Okay, so there's parking on Armstrong, Sears, and Barrett. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to this request? Any comments amongst the commission?
It's a huge improvement.
Yes, and that's a reasonable application for that land. I will close the public hearing on the item and entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to recommend approval of rezoning a property from the current Plan Development District to a new Plan Development District, SHT-TH, to allow for the development of townhouses on individually platted lots at 715 West Sears Street.
And then we would also need to add to the motion
With the
stipulation that
stipulations. Thank
Yes,
you.
subject to those stipulations, and I would also ask,
Subject to the plan development stipulations as listed.
Yeah.
Thank you.
and I would also ask that you add the stipulation to allow the planned development to be less than 3 acres in
with the
size.
stipulation that we add that because it's 2.9 acres,
Yes, sir.
adding that to the motion.
Thank you.
Thank
Do I
you.
hear a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Moving on to, thank you, everyone. Moving on to staff updates.
I'm not aware of any specific
Okay.
staff updates.
Okay.
There are projects coming through the process, and
Yes.
you'll see them on your next agenda. So,
Thank you so much.
With that being said, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. We are adjourned at 10:25 a.m.